I'm sure in your English or literature class you've experienced this sort of criticism or lesson from a teacher before. You read a passage in a book or a text or a short story about blue curtains. And before you can even get past that first sentence talking about said curtains, the teacher stops everybody and spends forever explaining why it matters that the curtains are blue, what they symbolize, and what they represent. And so you think to yourself, does that really matter? Can't the curtains just be blue? Can't we just move on? Years ago, that used to be a joke on Tumblr that would make its rounds criticizing how English and literature teachers in schools, regardless of the grade that they were teaching, would overcomplicate and overanalyze things. Can't some things just be simple and mean what they say that they mean? And sure, I've been in that camp too, where I may have reblogged that once or twice. Yet at the same time, we cannot deny that color is a very strong tool in any sort of art form, be it painting, movies, television, literature, and video games. Horror games are definitely no stranger to being criticized over use of certain colors. Oh, red means bad, it's so cliche. Ugh, yellow paint and yellow boxes, they're ruining my immersion. And while yes, the use of red can be a quick and easy way to symbolize danger or horror, make something spooky, and sure, yellow paint or markings can be a bit of an eyesore if not utilized well or cleanly in a video game. At the same time, they are still useful tools. Color can not only be used as a great visual marker for a player to draw focus, but it can also subconsciously affect your emotions, mood, and overall mental thought process while playing through a piece of art. And today I want to talk about the use of color in horror video games. Horror is such a wonderful and diverse genre, especially within the video game space. We have everything from retro and analog horror to RPG Maker pixel horror, mascots, cosmic horror, survival horror, everything that you could potentially think of. And I always feel like it's a bit of a shame whenever a horror movie or game or whatever piece of visual media lacks color. You can't just always rely on the dark and night to create a spooky atmosphere. Doesn't matter what's happening if I can't tell what's happening if there's no proper contrast. I want to highlight the ways that horror games can utilize color. Sometimes the curtains are just simply blue, but sometimes those blue curtains mean a lot more. I sure hope that you checked out the spoiler warnings at the beginning of this video, because I will be showcasing clips and talking about occasional spoilers, and some of these clips may be containing spoilers of varying degrees for tons of video games. Obviously, I can't showcase every single horror game out there, but I'm going to showcase a lot of clips that I think are really stellar examples of the use of color or even the lack thereof. One of the big games that I really want to highlight about its use of color and deeper symbolism is The Chant. The Chant is a cosmic horror game that came out in 2022. I have a huge fondness for cosmic horror games, and this was a game that I thoroughly enjoyed. It focuses on the main character, Jess, visiting her friend, Kim, who is a part of a New Age cult. Each member of the cult and character within this game is given a different colored crystal. These crystals and their color symbolisms ended up matching quite well with each of these characters and their storylines. So I will be bouncing around a little bit of the story here and there, not fully exploring everything, but we'll be talking a little bit about how each color corresponds with each character while they are on the run and hunted by cosmic horror creatures from the gloom. So strap on in with me. So let's get started. Let's start this travel down the rainbow with the color red, one of the most commonly used colors in horror games. Obviously, it is used to symbolize danger, blood, fear, anything nasty or potentially scary. It is also a great color to be used for health, whether it's to indicate that a character has low health by having red creep across the screen, or just any sort of health item in general. However, there is more to this color than just red equals bad or red equals health. A lot of the symbolism behind the color red includes life, health, war, anger, love, religious fervor, or passion and energy. Having both negative and positive symbolism depending upon what it should be used for. The color red can also be utilized to spike your anxiety and is known to speed up subconsciously your heart rate, as well as your blood flow and raise your body temperature. It can also make you feel a tad more sensitive to your environment. Additionally, there's a reason why most people don't paint the walls of their homes red. It can make you feel enclosed, can make you feel on edge. It's not exactly the most soothing color. More power to you if you decide to paint a room in your house red, but I doubt that's a room that you're going to be getting a lot of good sleep in. So, red is actually a perfect color to be using in the horror genre. Of course, it can just be used as a quick pass to make something scary, but when utilized correctly, it can take all of those subconscious feelings and really add to the game's experience. In the chant, the red crystal is owned by the cult's, let's just say, not so honest leader, Tyler. Tyler, of course, naturally being a cult leader, is a liar, a manipulator, and just an all-around not great guy, to put it very, very lightly. So associating such an anxiety-inducing color with this character was a great idea for this game. I could go for hours about games that utilize the color red cheaply or wonderfully. One that really stands out to me is the video game Control. Control is another cosmic horror game by the creators of Alan Wake, Remedy Entertainment, and does tie into the overall storyline for the Alan Wake franchise. Red is a color that is utilized to symbolize the hiss, the evil, malevolent force that is invading the oldest house and overtaking the minds of many of the employees there, twisting them and causing them to quite literally go insane and even become less human. Utilizing such strong shades of red brings in that borderline claustrophobia, that pressure that the hiss exerts. Overall, it's not just a scary color, but can also almost give the player some of the similar sensations that a character may be experiencing if they were in the game, comboed with some stellar audio design as well. Red is a versatile color that stands out. It's very eye-catching, especially when placed against cooler colors or a darker tone. We associate it with stopping. There's a reason why stop signs are the color red. It's hard to miss and signifies a warning. However, outside of just, red being scary or anxiety-inducing, due to its rather overpowering nature, symbolizing anger, rage, losing your mind, are also other great ways to utilize that color within a game. It's a passionate color that inspires emotions. It's not calming or soothing like the color blue is. So yes, I can understand why some people may criticize a game, especially an indie game that might be made by a first-time developer, for using the color red. But it's not inherently a bad thing. When used correctly to inspire feelings of anxiety, dread, heart racing, fear, it's a great use. I could go for hours and showcase a lot of video games like I'm doing right now, but we've got plenty of other colors to go down the rainbow with. Let's keep going. Orange is a color that is used far less frequently than the color red is, especially in the horror game space. Often it's utilized to, like the color yellow, to frame scenes with lots of fire or high heat environmental areas. It's a color that is very high energy, just like the color red, and evokes a vibrant social environment. On the positive side of the color horror, it can symbolize optimism and enthusiasm. But on the far more cautionary side, it is very overpowering if used far too much and can be seen as quite exhausting. In the video game The Chant, orange is used for the main character's best friend, or at least long-term friend, Kim. Kim and Jess have a complicated history in regards to Jess's younger sister, who had passed away when they were children. Kim and Jess feel extreme guilt over the occurrence since it was on their watch. Kim's overwhelming feelings of guilt contribute to her quote-unquote snapping the first and falling prey to the creatures of the gloom far quicker than any of the other characters in the game. Too much emotion can be both a bad thing and a good thing depending upon what said emotion is or the scenario. That high energy can be incredibly detrimental if you have overwhelming feelings of guilt, but can also lift your spirits. One of my personal favorite uses of the color orange in a character design is for the character of Yuri in the Fatal Frame Maiden of Blackwater video game. She wears a very bright orange, white, black, and yellow top that stands out against the dark nighttime, deep navy, or sometimes black and white sceneries of the game. It not only symbolizes that she is a character filled with life in contrast to the ghosts that are pursuing her, but also serves as a good visual standout for those that are playing the game. A great environmental use of the color orange is in the video game Kolot, a game that takes on a supernatural explanation of the real-life tragedy of the Dyatlov mystery pass deaths of several hikers. An orange fog creeps and chases the player as they uncover mysteries of the past in relation to what had occurred to make these hikers run from the safety of their own camp in the middle of a blizzard. Has that overpowering energy without utilizing something so obvious as the color red, and contrasts very wonderfully against the blue hues of the dark, snowy air. Contrary to red's anxiety-inducing energy, orange has the far more overpowering and exhausting feeling to it. Great for any game that is trying to make you feel some level of despair or danger, but not in a traditional sense that red may evoke. Let's move on to the next warm color on the spectrum, yellow. When it comes to the color yellow in horror, we often think of the trope of the young, innocent child character in the yellow raincoat, much like in the film It and Coraline. It's a color that inspires both positivity and happiness. Additionally, it's a great color to use to direct a player's attention to maybe a breakable object. Listen, I am a tired person, and sometimes when I play video games, I don't mind the help. On the far more negative side of the color yellow, it can also be used to symbolize cowardice, sickness, mental illness, or a feeling of caution. The brighter the shade. Again, it is a great contrasting color and evokes slightly different negative feelings than orange's exhausting energy or red's anxiety. Going back to the chant, the color yellow was assigned to the character of Sunny. Something that I really loved about each of the characters of the chant is that they symbolize a different type of person who is often preyed upon by cults. You have Maya and Jess, who exhibit grief and guilt for something in their past that are trying to find some way to cope with it and perhaps come to terms with it or find a new meaning in life. And then you have characters like Sunny that, think that they're so smart, but still are falling prey to the monetary scam that these cults exhibit. And in turn, start to become the abuser themselves by preying upon others. Sunny is a character who comes from a wealthy background and is trying to prove that he has what it takes to be a business mogul and that this cult is a fantastic investment. Through the dialogue, he does exhibit signs of cowardice and as well as greed and just, again, the victim becoming abuser. His emotions don't flow in an overwhelmingly exhausting way. There's thought and pain behind them. Wanting to be seen as more than they are. Wanting to be acknowledged. Another use of the color yellow within a game is Angela's iconic fire stairway scene in Silent Hill 2. Angela is a very tragic character from the Silent Hill franchise who very clearly went through something that no one should have to go through. The physical and other type of abuse from her father. Angela is tormented and very clearly never got the help that she needed. Of course, going back to our classic horror trope of the innocent child in the yellow raincoat, we have Six from the Little Nightmares games, who again starts off as very innocent, but things happen and she's not quite as innocent as she once was by the end of the first game. Something I've noticed, but is not always the case, is that yellow, when associated with a character, can be seen far more positive, showcasing their joy, vibrance, innocence, excitement. But when applied to an environment, be it the color of the walls or the lighting, it can shift into a far more negative side. Yellow is a typical caution and safety color in any normal real-life setting, which is obviously seen in the video game Still Wakes the Deep, a cosmic horror that I cannot recommend enough, with vibrant shades of purple, green, and red. But, of course, you'll see specks of yellow in there to fit proper OSHA safety regulations, while at the same time assisting the player with things that you know you should be directing your attention to or using to traverse this falling apart oil rig. Yellow is a color just like red that is far more than just yellow paint. It can be used depending upon how you want to associate with a character to inspire positivity and innocence, or symbolize that a character might not be as good as they appear to be. It all depends upon how bright the shade and just what message you're trying to evoke. Let's move on into the cooler spectrum of the rainbow now. Moving on, let's talk about the color green. Green is a color that can symbolize rebirth, renewal, immortality, and provide you with a sense of stress relief and relax your muscles. It's a very calming color that is often used to contrast red. In the chant, green is assigned to the character of Maya. Right off the bat, Maya exudes a far more calming and maternal energy. She is a grieving mother who lost her baby to an easily preventable illness due to not vaccinating her child. That grief takes over her in the end, making her susceptible to manipulation by not only the cult, but also the gloom itself. Green is a color that has far less negative symbolisms and connotations than the warmer colors of red, yellow, and orange, but still can be utilized to symbolize something otherworldly, something that doesn't quite feel natural. It's a great color when moving more into an H.P. Lovecraftian inspired Cthulhu-esque horror. When you see a green light, it doesn't quite seem right, doesn't seem normal, doesn't seem natural. So while it might not be outwardly dangerous or evoking of stress, there's still something about it that can provide the player with a sense of caution. There's a feeling of something almost alien in nature when utilized to light a room or provide ambiance. Of course, it can also be utilized to symbolize hope, like in The Last of Us Part 1. Something I've always loved about that game is the fact that it is such a vibrantly bright take on the apocalypse. Rather than something that is so drab and dreary right off the bat, you see nature taking over where humans left. Now let's move on to the color blue. Just like green, blue is often symbolized on a far more positive light, or is a great highlight for a dark area within a video game, as well as more water-inspired aquatic games like BioShock or snowy video games and environments as well. In the chant, blue is assigned to our player character of Jess, contrasting her against the red character of Tyler, the cult's leader. She isn't really a believer in this sort of thing. However, she wants to support her friend Kim, who claims to have gotten a lot out of this particular establishment. It is a color that symbolizes wisdom, introspection, and it can lower your heart rate and slow your breathing. It's also a color that is really great for memory enhancement. While yes, it can also be seen on a far more depressing scale, symbolizing sadness or just emotional disparity, it typically is used to help highlight a darkened scene or used on a far more positive side of things. Even when used to highlight a darkened area, it's not typically the most danger-inducing color. However, if you place something that's red in a scene that is lit primarily by blue, you can start to play upon contrasting colors in a very wonderful and far more vibrant and visually interesting way. Blue is also a great color for characters to take a moment to breathe and calm down after a far more maybe red or orange or yellow highlighted scene of anxiety and fear. It's good to have moments in horror games where the character can calm down and take a breath. If you have constant anxiety the entire time, you risk a player becoming almost desensitized to it. So having moments of cooler shades like the color blue can help make those moments filled with red far more frightening. Now let's talk about a far more interesting color, purple. While it's tempting to immediately talk about Purple Guy from the Five Nights at Freddy's series, we're going to dive a little bit deeper. Purple is often thought of as a color to symbolize royalty, partially due to the fact that purple dye has been historically far more expensive and difficult to produce. As a result, it symbolizes luxury and power and ambition. It's a color that can foster creativity and intuition and harmony due to the fact that it is a blend of conflicting colors of red and blue. Depending upon how you want to use the color purple, it can symbolize balance or it can symbolize instability due to being those combinations of conflicting colors. It all depends upon what feelings you are trying to evoke. In the chant, purple is used for the character of Hannah, the emotionally manipulated girlfriend of the cult leader Tyler. Hannah, for the most part, appears balanced and clear-headed and takes charge where Tyler fails as things start to fall apart. However, in the end of the game, she decides enough is enough. I will not be manipulated. I will not be taken advantage of any longer, and becomes the source of the final boss fight of the game, falling prey to the malevolence that the gloom presents. That balance and unbalance, the stability and instability, is a fragile thing. Another example of an imbalanced character or scene in a video game is the end of Little Nightmares 2, when the character of Six becomes lost. Her yellow raincoat, highlighted by purple lighting, showcases that something's not right. Another one of my favorite purple characters is Daniela from Haunting Ground. She is a character who at first appears very calm, collected, and a bit frightening, becomes far more unstable and unbalanced as she begins to hunt the main character Fiona, rageful that she is, quote unquote, not a complete woman. Purple, like the color green, is another great color that when you see that lighting, you get a sense of unnaturalness. Yes, you can see it in certain character designs or areas to showcase power and luxury and royalty, as stated before, or seen as a balance of two conflicting sides of red and blue, like say two lightsabers crashing, forming somebody who is balanced in the force with purple. Or it can be seen as somebody who is unstable, who is fighting against the good and evil within their mind, or an environment that is doing so and evoking those sensations. Finally, let's talk about what happens when there's an absence of color, when it's black and white, when there aren't any vibrancy. It can almost feel wrong. Sure, you can use it to symbolize something in the past or an old film, but you can always push that envelope just a little bit further. It can symbolize pain or death, There's a lack of emotion to it. It can make something feel alien. There's no comfort or pain. Nothing good, but also nothing bad at the same time. Just an overall sense of wrongness or numbness, such as the mold in Resident Evil 7, or the asylum in Alice Madness Returns. There's something not quite right in a world without color. A game that fully pushes the envelope of contrasting black and white is a game called White Knight that takes place entirely in a black and white visual style, but pushes the envelope even further by playing with light. It's meant to evoke a noir film style, but at the same time does heighten the feelings of danger and death with the ghosts that are within the spooky house that our player character walks into. In the Alan Wake games, the use of black and white almost feels like an homage to the original Twilight Zone, a TV show that was constrained by black and white due to the time period in which the TV show was coming out. However, they utilized a lot of lighting and contrast to still provide you with wonderful visual entertainment. The Alan Wake games themselves are heavily inspired by Rod Serling's work within the Twilight Zone, amongst other things such as David Lynch's Twin Peaks and other pieces of media. The use of black and white can send you back in time, subconsciously make you associate what is happening with something else, with something from the past. But that lack of comfort and emotions can bring about a certain despair that a story may want to tell. Not all horror is big, spooky, scary thing chasing you or jumping out at you, or a big old red demon or whatever. Horror can also inspire a feeling of despair and wrongness depending upon what story they are trying to evoke. Be it the cosmic horror of Slay the Princess, the desire to erase away all of the pain caused by trauma and Evil Within 2, or any other number of game that maybe wants to discuss the horrors of letting go, the horrors of emptiness when you are without something. Without emotions, without love, without family, without whatever it is that you're pursuing. There's the wrongness and numbness of the fog of Silent Hill. While yes, a lack of color can bring calm due to not having some overwhelming colors, that numbness isn't always good. An absence of color is just as important as an overwhelming abundance of color. Finally, we're moving into the conclusion of this video. It was very tempting to make this a 5-hour-long video talking about every single horror game that I know and love and each and every single ways that they push the envelope with color. But at the same time, I wanted to make sure that I was editing it down and making this as straightforward and to the point. While the use of color, especially something like red, can feel tropey if overdone and seen as something that's cheap or just easy, it can also exist for a reason. Color makes a difference in any visual storytelling. We can always be more creative with the use of color, especially in horror, by utilizing, say, purple or orange or green, as opposed to just sticking to the color red. But, of course, when utilized correctly, the color red is a great visual tool. We don't exactly want to chuck out that crayon, especially when we're trying to evoke a sense of fear and anxiety. Sure, sometimes the curtains are just blue. Who cares? There's not much more to it, but sometimes those curtains are blue for a reason. Personally, I find fun and joy in analyzing the hidden meanings behind some of my favorite pieces of media, especially video games. And frankly, I love horror games that are not against embracing the use of color or the lack thereof. So, be it you a player or a future game developer, I hope you enjoyed this self-indulgent dive down the color box and rainbows and colors of the horror video game medium. And take care. Perhaps I'll see you sometime soon.